Hey guys, tonight we slip back through time into the quiet world of 18th century Dutch tulip traders. Imagine yourself waking up in Amsterdam, where the city's iconic canals glisten under a soft dawn light, and the faint echo of horse-drawn carts rattling on cobblestone fills the cool air. The scent of damp brick and fresh-cut wood mingles with a faint hint of earth and flowers still sleeping beneath the mist. Around you, shutters creak open. Shopkeepers arrange their wares, and somewhere a market bell tolls calling traders to their early dealings. This is the Dutch Golden Age winding down, but the hum of commerce is never silent here. Now, before you get too cozy, imagining yourself in wooden shoes surrounded by pastel tulips, here's a little reality check you probably won't survive this world long. Not because of brutal weather or plagues, though those existed, but because the stakes in the tulip trade are deceptively high, and the quiet canals hide more tension than you'd expect. But, hey, that's exactly what makes this so fascinating. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, while you're at it, drop your location and local time down below. Let's see how far we're traveling tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge from your modest canal-side home onto the slick stone streets, the chill of morning dew, soaking through your wooden clogs. The air is alive with a gentle clamor. Merchants arranging barrels of spices, fishmongers shouting out their freshest catch, and the unmistakable flutter of cloth sails on barges lining the quays. In the 1700s, Amsterdam pulses as one of the world's busiest ports, its fortunes buoyed by shipping banking and an obsession that's painted the city's mood tulips. It's important to understand that the Dutch Golden Age, peaking in the 17th century, laid the groundwork for this quieter, steadier 18th century trade. Amsterdam's canals, built as arteries of commerce, are still lined with merchant houses, slim, tall, and proudly leaning just a little forward, as if eager to peer out over the waters and watch for opportunity. Your path takes you past these narrow facades, their windows brimming with lace curtains and the faint glow of candlelight. The market bell signals its time. Tulip bulbs, those fragile, precious orbs that seem so innocent, are the currency of hope here. The air is thick with anticipation. You feel the thrumming pulse of deals being struck, the scratch of quills on parchment, the shuffling of coins, and the soft whispering of secrets. Traders don't shout here. Their voice is low, deliberate, because the stakes, while unseen, loom large. Historians still argue whether this 18th century market was truly a continuation of the infamous tulip mania bubble of the 1630s, or something altogether different, less manic, more calculated, yet every bit as tense. You sense that the shadow of the past bubble haunts every transaction, a ghost that warns, but also seduces. The hysteria that once inflated tulip prices to ludicrous heights might have passed, but its lessons and scars are etched into the fabric of this society. Now, tulip trading in your time is a quieter game of patience and precision. There's no shouting matches or stampedes. It's a chess match played in hushed tones and furtive glances. You weave through the crowd in the flower market near the Dam Square, where stalls groan with rows of tulips, hyacinths, and narcissi. The bulbs, deceptively small and brown, hide their true worth beneath leathery skins and mysterious genetics. Here's a quirky tidbit. Many tulip aficionados whisper about the broken tulip's flowers, whose petals bloom with fractal-like flames of color. These stunning mutations caused by a virus known as the tulip-breaking virus were the most coveted and rare prized more than gold at times. Imagine trading a single bulb for a full month's wages. The virus didn't kill the plant immediately, but it painted the petals in dazzling patterns, an unintended but mesmerizing side effect. The delicate balance of rarity and risk makes you wonder about the fine line between nature's beauty and human greed. You learn to read faces for trustworthiness, watch hands for nervous tics, and notice the tiniest detail in a bulb's shape or sheen. Outside the canal, water glistens under the morning sun, reflecting the rigging of ships arriving from the East Indies. Exotic spices, silks, and dyes flow through the port, fueling the broader economy on which the tulip trade depends. The wealth from these global connections allows some to gamble on flowers, betting on luck and the future. You catch a whiff of fresh bread from a nearby bakery and wonder if the bakery owner could afford such luxuries, or if the tulip market remains an exclusive club. Women in lace bonnets glide past, their faces calm, but eyes sharp, because even here the market's tendrils extend into society's fabric beyond just the traders. At the heart of it, tulip trading isn't merely about flowers. It's about hope status and survival. The quiet world you inhabit holds secrets and stories far richer than its serene canals suggest. And tonight, as you follow this path, you begin to unravel them. You move deeper into the lingering shadow of tulip mania's ghost, the infamous fever that seized Holland in the 1630s and then vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. The city's hushed whispers carry memories of that wild speculation, when tulip bulbs sold for prices that made fortunes and ruined lives overnight. The echoes still shape every trader's caution and ambition here in the 18th century, long after the crash. The story goes that at the height of the mania, a single tulip bulb could cost more than a house in Amsterdam. Imagine paying for a flower as if it were prime real estate while your neighbor's canal house slowly crumbled. Yet it was more than just madness. It was a bizarre blend of hope, status, and the intoxicating belief in endless growth. Some speculate it was the world's first recorded speculative bubble. Others argue it wasn't a bubble but a complex social phenomenon wrapped in symbolism and art. Historians still argue whether the mania's sudden collapse was inevitable or could have been tempered by wiser regulation. In your time, that debate colors every auction hall you enter. The air is thick with a sort of collective holding of breath, everyone waiting for the next big surprise but hoping it won't be a disaster. Despite the boom's violent end decades earlier, tulips never lost their allure. You see them not just as flowers but as living tokens of hope and prosperity. In the quiet trading rooms, far from the crowds, traders cautiously buy and sell contracts for bulbs, yet to be harvested, betting on seasons yet to come. Futures trading, you might say, though far less formalized than today's markets. Each contract carries a whispered promise and a hidden risk. A quirky little fact, some tulip traders used whisper prices, sharing confidential hints about bulb values in coded language or inside jokes, because trust was a fragile currency here. One trader's joke about a purple heart could mean a prized violet-colored bulb, or a warning about a bad deal. It's like a secret handshake, except with more at stake than a beer. Your footsteps echo on the wooden floorboards of a merchant's home-turned office where deals are inked with care. Here, light filters through leaded glass windows, casting patchwork shadows over piles of documents and stacks of tulip bulbs carefully wrapped in straw. Traders sit in close clusters, leaning in to exchange news and rumors, all under the watchful eyes of portraits of stern ancestors whose fortunes were built on the tulip trade. It's hard to believe, but some of these old families still talk about the mania as if it were a mythic tale, a cautionary parable told to new traders who might get carried away. Remember the mania, they warn, but don't forget the profit. This double-edged memory shapes the culture of the market like nothing else. You pause to look out a window onto the canal. Boats glide silently, their sails taut with the morning breeze. The tulip trade's echoes have faded from the street shouting of the 17th century into this more subdued 18th century rhythm. Now, prices move with quiet steadiness, and traders rely on long-experience intuition and whispered tips. There's no place here for reckless gambles, or so they say. But some scholars debate whether this steadiness was real or a veneer masking undercurrents of tension. Were these quiet years truly calm, or just a slower build-up to another upheaval? It's a question that lingers in the air as elusive as the fragrance of the tulips themselves. Beyond the market halls, the city's growing bureaucracy has begun to codify trading practices. Contracts must be written and witnessed penalties for fraud defined, and courtrooms occasionally convened to settle disputes. This new legal structure attempts to prevent a repeat of the chaotic mania days, yet enforcement remains patchy and sometimes biased toward wealthy traders. The tulip market still captivates society beyond the traders themselves. You hear the laughter of children chasing butterflies in the flower gardens, the chatter of ladies comparing the subtle differences between crimson and scarlet blooms, and the distant melody of a lute played in a nearby tavern. These daily scenes remind you that tulips are more than just commodities, they are woven into the fabric of life here. And yet there's an unspoken tension in every petal, every contract. The past mania taught harsh lessons, but it also seeded dreams that refuse to die. You can almost hear the city holding its breath, waiting to see if the tulip trade will bloom again into greatness or wilt under the weight of its own history. You find yourself stepping into the bustling shoes of a tulip trader, navigating through the crowded, creaking auction halls and shadowed back rooms where deals are whispered and fortunes made or lost. It's early morning, but the energy is already palpable as you enter the narrow streets near the Blumenmarkt, the famous flower market where the scent of fresh earth and blooming tulips hangs heavy in the air. The day begins with the familiar rhythm traders gather at designated spots, clutching their ledger books and quills, scanning the rows of tulip bulbs laid out on wooden tables. The market feels like a living organism, pulsing with murmurs and quiet negotiations. The tulips themselves seem to glow in the soft light, their colors vibrant reds like freshly spilled wine yellows bright as morning sunshine, and those rare broken tulips flickering with flame-like patterns. You trudge from stall to stall, eyeing the bulbs with a practiced gaze. Your fingers brush against the rough, papery skins of prized varieties, searching for subtle imperfections or signs of disease. Each bulb carries a story and a promise some will blossom into coveted prize winners. Others might disappoint or even rot before spring. One mainstream fact grounds your day auctions are the heart of tulip trading. Buyers gather bidding discreetly but competitively, with prices rising and falling like the tide. Unlike modern-day auctions with flashy gavel banging, these are subtle affairs. Sometimes a simple nod or a coded phrase seals the deal, requiring all the trust you can muster in a world where contracts are inked with shaky hands. Here's a quirky tidbit you overhear from an old trader. Some tulip dealers use bulb spies, trusted informants who sneak into rival markets to gather intelligence on rare bulb sightings or whispered price trends. It's like an espionage novel set in petals and soil. You chuckle at the idea, imagining trench-coated spies tiptoeing past flower stalls with bulbs hidden in their hats. Despite the quiet atmosphere, tension simmers. Historians still argue whether these auctions were genuinely fair or subtly manipulated by wealthy traders who formed alliances to corner the market on certain tulip varieties. You can sense the undercurrents of power play in the sidelong glances and coded language. Midday arrives, and you retreat briefly to a small coffee house tucked away near a canal. Here, traders swap rumors and market news over thick black coffee and thin, crisp biscuits. You overhear talk of a new variety emerging from Harlem, promising a color never seen before. The excitement is tempered by caution. Everyone remembers how quickly fortunes can vanish. Women, often overlooked in market scenes, sometimes appear here too, either as relatives of traders or independent investors. Their presence is subtle but meaningful, as they often hold key information or influence discreet deals. You take note of a woman in a dark shawl, exchanging a small package with a trader, her eyes sharp and knowing. Returning to the auctions, the afternoon brings private negotiations behind closed doors. Contracts are drawn up sealed with wax and exchanged carefully. Paperwork is often handwritten on vellum or thick parchment, and you become aware of the importance of legal language to protect against fraud. A misplaced word or unclear clause could mean ruin. You notice the mix of hope and anxiety on everyone's faces. The quiet intensity in the room contrasts with the delicate beauty of the tulips themselves. Your pulse quickens as you consider the risk buying bulbs that may not bloom, prices that may plummet, or contracts that could be contested in court. As the sun lowers, casting long shadows across the canal houses, you step outside to watch barges unload spices and silks, a reminder of Amsterdam's vast global connections. The tulip trade may seem insular, but it's woven into the broader tapestry of Dutch commerce. Back home, you carefully wrap purchased bulbs in straw and place them in your cellar, where the cool, damp conditions promise to keep them dormant but alive until planting season. Your day closes with reflection on the delicate balance of trust-risk and beauty that defines this quiet yet frenetic world. You notice how tulips here aren't just flowers, they're badges of honor, symbols of social standing and personal taste. The whole city seems to dance around them, using tulips as currency in a subtle social game where who owns what bulb whispers louder than words. Owning a rare tulip can elevate a merchant from mere trade to true prestige. Walking past the gilded facades of merchant houses along the canals, you see gardens boasting meticulously cultivated tulips arranged like jewels on velvet. These blooms aren't just pretty. They're statements, carefully selected colors and shapes that declare wealth and refinement. Sometimes a tulip with a unique broken pattern becomes the centerpiece of an aristocrat's parlor, admired and envied in equal measure. Social gatherings you attend revolve around tulips almost as much as conversation. You overhear nobles debating whether a scarlet flame tulip is truly worth the price of admission to an exclusive ball. Others trade gossip about who recently acquired the rarest cultivar, sometimes known as the Semper Augustus, a legend in its own right. Historians still argue whether these rare tulips were as valuable as stories suggest, or if their worth has been exaggerated by later myth. You also note that tulip ownership marks status across classes from wealthy merchants to art patrons and even clergy. Some clergymen condemn the obsession as vanity, while others quietly indulge, recognizing that the flower's beauty mirrors divine creation. The tulip becomes a paradox, a sacred and profane symbol rolled into one. Interestingly, women use tulips to communicate. In a city of coded gestures and hidden messages, presenting someone with a particular tulip color can convey secret meanings: love, jealousy, or friendship. You witness a young woman discreetly handing a pink tulip to a suitor, sparking speculation and subtle smiles. This silent language of flowers adds layers to social interaction, making tulips as much a part of conversation as spoken words. You reflect on how tulip collecting isn't just about possession, but about narrative owning a story that connects you to the land, the seasons, and the city's pulse. Tulips become heirlooms passed down with pride, their provenance carefully recorded in family ledgers. The cultural weight extends beyond mere economics. Tulip festivals light up parts of the city, drawing crowds who celebrate these fleeting blossoms. Artists paint tulips in delicate watercolors, capturing every petal's curve. Poets weave verses around the flower's fragile beauty and the bittersweet temporality of life itself. At night, as you stroll back under gas lamps flickering to life, you hear tavern songs referencing tulips, sometimes wistful, sometimes mocking a reminder that the flower's allure has seeped into every corner of Dutch life. You wonder how something so small, a humble bulb, can carry so much meaning, shaping identity and desire alike. Tulips are not just commodities. They are culture, language, and legacy wrapped in petals. You find yourself drawn into the delicate world of bulbs and botany, the very core of the tulip trade. The tulip bulb is no ordinary plant part. It's a living, breathing treasure chest of genetics and horticultural mystery. Each bulb holds the potential for dazzling blooms that can command fortunes or wither into disappointment. Walking through a greenhouse filled with rows of bulbs nestled in beds of peat and sand, you observe the careful cultivation practices that keep this fragile trade alive. The Dutch have mastered bulb propagation techniques, manipulating soil moisture and light to coax the best from each batch. You notice how growers keep a watchful eye for signs of disease or fungal infection, which can devastate entire crops in a season. One fascinating fact is that tulips were originally imported from the Ottoman Empire in the late 16th century, arriving in Europe as exotic marvels. The Dutch, with their keen scientific curiosity, began experimenting with hybridization, crossbreeding varieties to produce new colors and forms. This quest for novelty fueled the market's fever, with every new variant a potential gold mine. You hear about the tulip breaking virus again, the mysterious cause behind the broken petals' mesmerizing streaks and flames. While today we understand it's a virus, at the time it was a botanical enigma, sometimes thought to be a gift from the heavens or a curse. This virus spread silently from bulb to bulb, making some of the most sought-after flowers simultaneously stunning and vulnerable. The science of tulip genetics was still in its infancy, leading to a blend of rigorous observation and superstition. Growers might carry lucky charms, recite blessings, or avoid certain planting days according to the lunar calendar. Such rituals are as much a part of the trade as soil quality or watering schedules. Historians still debate whether these superstitions slowed scientific progress or added a valuable cultural layer that kept growers invested in their craft. You smile thinking about the curious mix of mysticism and method. As the sun filters through the greenhouse glass, you notice a curious device called a forcing pot, used to trick tulips into blooming early indoors. This allowed traders and collectors to enjoy flowers out of season, maintaining their status and feeding the market's insatiable demand. Imagine owning a flower blooming in January when the rest of the world waits for spring. In the quiet corners of botanical libraries, you find hand-illustrated catalogs meticulously documenting bulb varieties, each entry a work of art and science. These records are prized by collectors and traders alike, serving as reference points in the endless hunt for new and rare tulips. The botanical world is full of hidden dangers, too. You learn about mildew and bulb rot diseases that can wipe out entire shipments. Traders and growers use all manner of remedies, from washing bulbs in vinegar to burying them in sulfur. But success varies. This risk of loss keeps prices volatile and traders perpetually nervous. You witness the tension between nature's unpredictability and human desire for control. The tulip trade is a dance between biology and business, a fragile balance where a tiny virus or an unlucky storm can undo months of work. As you leave the greenhouse, you carry with you an appreciation for the skill and luck involved in turning a humble bulb into a shimmering bloom of wealth and wonder. You step back from the tulip beds and into the bustling streets where the economic ripples of the tulip trade spread wide and deep, shaping the broader Dutch economy. The delicate bulbs you've been handling are far from mere botanical curiosities. They are tightly entwined with shipping finance and credit the lifeblood of Amsterdam's commerce. As you stroll past warehouses stacked with spices, textiles, and exotic goods from the East Indies, you notice how tulips fit into a much larger picture. Tulip traders often borrow money to finance their purchases, pledging future bulbs or property as collateral. This web of credit links the flower market directly to Amsterdam's famed banking houses and merchant fleets. One mainstream fact, the tulip trade contributed to the expansion of credit systems in the Dutch Republic. Banks and moneylenders developed new ways to issue loans and draft contracts, adapting to the uncertain but potentially lucrative tulip market. This financial innovation would influence European banking long after the tulip's bloom faded. But here's a quirky detail: some traders used tulip bulbs themselves as collateral for loans. Yes, imagine pawning a flower bulb like a medieval pawn shop. This practice showed both the flower's value and the inherent risks, since bulbs could rot or fail to bloom, leaving lenders exposed. The tulip economy also intersected with shipping and insurance. Bulbs were transported in barrels across canals, rivers, and oceans to reach eager buyers in distant markets. Merchants insured shipments against spoilage or loss at sea, pioneering some of the earliest marine insurance contracts. You can almost hear the nervous whispers on dockside tavern benches about lost shipments and smashed barrels. Historians still argue whether the tulip trade's financial practices accelerated Dutch economic growth or introduced dangerous vulnerabilities that made markets more fragile. The debate centers on how much credit fueled genuine trade versus speculative excess. You pass by a coffee house where traders and financiers gather their hushed conversations, mixing stock market news, shipping schedules, and flower prices. These hubs are the nerve centers where the tulip market's influence seeps into broader economic trends. The line between trader and banker blurs here. Tulip profits fueled luxury goods markets, too. Fine fabrics, silverware, and exotic spices products arriving from distant colonies became more accessible to the rising merchant class. Tulip fortunes enabled investment in art, architecture, and cultural patronage, leaving a lasting mark on Dutch society. Yet you notice a fragile tension beneath the surface. The reliance on credit means that a single market collapse could cascade, affecting shipping firms, banks, and entire families. The economy is a delicate house of cards, each tulip bulb a potential trigger. Walking along the harbor, you glimpse ships preparing to set sail carrying tulip bulbs alongside coffee tea and porcelain. The flower is both a local passion and a global player, its reach extending far beyond Amsterdam's canals. As evening falls, the city lights reflect off the water in shimmering ripples, echoing the economic waves that the tulip trade sends through Dutch society. You realize that these quiet bulbs are silent engines of commerce, innovation, and risk driving a complex system that balances beauty and money with equal care. You begin to sense the darker undercurrents beneath the tulip trade's glossy surface. Risks that aren't visible in the quiet morning auctions or the fragrant tulip beds. Behind every pristine bloom lies a shadowy world of fraud market manipulation and fragile trust between traders, making this seemingly genteel business far more perilous than you might imagine. The first fact to ground you fraud was a real and persistent threat in the tulip market. Unscrupulous traders sometimes sold fake contracts agreements for bulbs that didn't exist or had been promised to others. You learn about ghost bulbs, a term for bulbs that were purely speculative, existing only on paper. Buyers eager and sometimes desperate would discover too late that their prized tulips were phantom fortunes. A quirky detail, some traders used clever forgeries, producing fake bulbs with painted skins to trick buyers at a glance. This practice wasn't widespread, but it added a layer of mistrust that rippled through the market. You imagine the surprise and horror when a rare bulb revealed itself to be little more than painted papier-mâché. You notice the subtle ways market manipulation plays out. Powerful trader guilds sometimes collaborated to corner the market on certain rare tulip varieties, artificially driving up prices before selling off at a profit. These cartels operated with a whisper of secrecy, and the average trader had little recourse. Historians still argue whether these manipulative practices were widespread or confined to a few rogue players, but the risk they posed was undeniable. This tension between honest trade and deception shadows every deal. You overhear stories of ruined traders, those who bet too heavily and lost their fortunes, forced to sell homes or default on debts. The fragile trust that underpins all transactions makes even the most routine deal feel like walking a tightrope without a net. Legal recourse exists, but is imperfect. Court cases over disputed contracts sometimes drag on for years, exhausting the resources of smaller traders. The complexity of tulip contracts combined with ambiguous language often leads to contentious interpretations. In quieter moments, traders develop subtle rituals to protect themselves, secret signals, trusted intermediaries, and careful vetting of partners. You recall the bulb spies from the auctions, those informants who help sniff out fraud and insider information. You also catch sight of social pressure as a policing mechanism. Reputation is everything. A trader caught cheating risks exclusion from the market's inner circles, effectively ending their career. This informal justice balances the weak, formal legal framework. As dusk settles, you reflect on the paradox the tulip trade thrives on beauty and trust, but is constantly haunted by deception and risk. The fragile petals and bulbs mirror the delicate web of human trust and greed. Walking home along the shadowed canals, you hear the occasional clink of glasses in taverns, where traders unwind their conversations thick with rumors and warnings. The quiet world of tulip trading is anything but simple, wrapped in layers of complexity that only grow with time. You begin to notice the surprising threads of gender weaving through the tulip trade, a world often imagined as dominated by stern men in waistcoats, but in reality, shaped by the quiet influence of women. While men took center stage in auctions and contracts, women played vital roles behind the scenes, from savvy investors to secret informants. One well-known fact grounds this insight: women in 18th century Dutch society could and did own property and engage in business transactions, especially widows and unmarried women. This legal autonomy gave them footholds in markets like tulip trading, where they could invest, lend, or even act as intermediaries in deals. You hear whispers about the flower ladies, women who cultivated their own tulip collections, sometimes rivaling men's in variety and value. These collectors weren't just passive owners. They knew the plants, the markets, and the gossip that could make or break a sale. A quirky tale unfolds as you learn that some women used flower markets as cover for gathering intelligence on rival traders. Posing as simple shoppers or socialites, they gathered crucial information on prices and demand, passing it discreetly to family or associates. Think of them as early market spies, hidden behind the folds of their bonnets. Historians still debate how extensive women's participation truly was, whether these roles were exceptions or a wider norm hidden beneath patriarchal assumptions. The challenge lies in the scarcity of written records, often penned by men who overlooked or minimized women's contributions. At social gatherings, you notice women exchanging bouquets of tulips as subtle signals, alliances, warnings, or expressions of favor. In a society where direct speech was sometimes constrained by etiquette, flowers became a secret language, and women were fluent speakers. In your travels, you visit a merchant's home where his wife manages the family's tulip portfolio with meticulous care. She tracks the health of bulbs stored in the cellar, negotiates with suppliers, and advises on market timing. Her influence is quiet but decisive. The intersection of gender and trade also reveals tensions. Some men bristled at women's involvement, fearing loss of control or exposure of insider secrets. Yet others recognized that business was business, and women's networks were valuable assets. You witness how these gender dynamics add texture to the tulip world's social fabric. The market isn't just about bulbs and money, but about relationships, power, and survival in a complex social dance. As evening falls, you think about the silent strength of these women whose contributions often went unrecorded, but whose impact shaped the market's rhythms. Their stories, like delicate tulip petals, are easy to overlook, but essential to the whole. You slip into the quiet rituals and subtle routines that underpin the tulip traders' daily lives, practices that keep nerves steady and decisions sharp in a market where fortunes hinge on the fragile bloom of a bulb. These aren't grand gestures, but whispered habits. The way a trader polishes his quill, arranges bulbs just so, or begins the day with a slow, deliberate sip of strong coffee. One solid fact anchors this: traders often began their mornings early, walking along canals to inspect bulbs stored in cold cellars, checking for signs of decay or premature sprouting. This daily vigilance was critical. A forgotten rot or disease could wipe out months of investment. The cold, damp conditions in cellars were maintained carefully, often with straw insulation and regular airing. You notice the quiet superstitions that pepper trader behavior. Some would tap a bulb 3 times before purchase, an old ritual meant to awaken the fortune. Others avoided trading on Fridays, believing it unlucky, or consulted lunar calendars to pick planting days. These customs blend into the market's fabric, as common as the cobblestones underfoot. A quirky insight, many traders kept small charm boxes with dried tulip petals, coins, and tiny trinkets believed to bring luck and protect against market collapse. You imagine the juxtaposition of these talismans with ledgers full of cold, hard numbers, a delicate dance between faith and finance. Historians still debate whether these rituals were mere superstition or psychological tools that helped traders manage stress and uncertainty. Some argue that in a high-stakes environment these habits provided comfort and focus, while others see them as remnants of a more mystical past clinging to modern commerce. You observe how traders' attire plays a role in ritual. Crisp collars and neat cuffs convey seriousness, while a particular hat tilt might signal confidence or caution in the market. The body language in auction rooms is a code itself. Leaning forward might mean eagerness. Averted gaze might signal hesitation. Conversations often revolve around weather forecasts, soil conditions, and bulb health, revealing how intertwined the trade is with natural cycles. Traders develop a deep respect for the rhythms of seasons and the unpredictability of nature, balancing optimism with realism. Lunch breaks are brief and quiet, taken in small groups, where traders exchange rumors and updates. These moments strengthen social bonds, building trust and alliances critical in a market where legal protections are patchy. As twilight deepens, traders prepare their ledgers for the next day, reviewing contracts, making notes of important contacts, and reflecting on the day's wins and losses. This nightly ritual solidifies information and calms restless minds. You realize these rituals and routines form the silent backbone of the tulip trade, a steady pulse beneath the market's ebb and flow. In their small, deliberate acts, traders find order in uncertainty and confidence amid risk. You follow the journey of tulip bulbs as they travel far beyond the watery streets of Amsterdam, reaching distant ports and influencing trade routes and cultures worldwide. Tulips have become more than local treasures. They are prized commodities, carried across seas, symbols of Dutch reach and reputation. One mainstream fact: by the 18th century tulip bulbs were regularly shipped to markets in England, France, and even as far as the Ottoman Empire, their places of origin. Merchants arranged complex shipping contracts to ensure bulbs arrived intact, timing voyages to preserve their dormant state through months at sea. You're intrigued by a quirky detail. Some traders wrapped bulbs in damp moss and packed them inside barrels filled with straw to cushion them from the jostling ship decks. There were even tales of secret compartments in cargo holds designed to hide the most precious bulbs from thieves and rivals during long journeys. The tulip's global journey also introduced it to new cultural contexts. In England, tulips became a favorite of the aristocracy's grand gardens, inspiring horticultural trends and botanical studies. French poets wrote odes to their fiery petals, while Ottoman gardeners experimented with new hybrids blending tulip varieties with native flowers. Historians still debate how much the tulip's spread influenced early globalization, with some arguing it was a small but meaningful cultural exchange, while others see it as a key example of botanical imperialism. European powers exporting prized species to assert status and control. You watch dock workers loading crates in the fading light, aware that each shipment is a delicate gamble. Delays, storms, or mishandling could mean losing entire cargoes and fortunes. Insurance firms emerged to mitigate these risks, pioneering early forms of maritime coverage. Alongside tulips, other goods travel the same routes: spices, tea porcelain, and textiles. Tulips sit at the nexus of this global network, linking the flower's humble origins to the vast machinery of world trade. You imagine the excitement in distant markets when a rare Dutch bulb arrives, exotic, mysterious, and full of promise. These arrivals spark curiosity and competition, prompting local growers to adopt tulip cultivation or breed new varieties inspired by the Dutch originals. Even as you step back onto Amsterdam's slick canals, you feel the far-reaching impact of these fragile bulbs. Their journey reflects the expanding horizons of 18th century commerce and culture, a silent bloom stretching across continents. You find yourself immersed in the legal frameworks that underpin the tulip trade contracts laws and court cases that govern this volatile market, and attempt to tame its wild swings. The paperwork, as much as the petals, forms the backbone of trader interactions, defining rights and obligations with painstaking detail. One concrete fact: formal contracts, often handwritten on parchment or vellum, were the norm. These documents specified quantities, delivery dates, prices, and penalties for breach. Many traders kept meticulous records, knowing that a single ambiguous clause could lead to ruinous lawsuits. A quirky insight reveals that some contracts included bizarre clauses, such as penalties for bulbs damaged by acts of God, which could mean anything from flooding canals to a bad moon. Traders debated endlessly what counted as force majeure, often turning to local courts to interpret. Historians still argue whether these legal frameworks were effective in preventing fraud, or simply added layers of complexity that favored wealthier traders with better access to legal counsel. Smaller traders often found themselves overwhelmed, facing costly disputes they could ill afford. You witness a courtroom drama unfold in your mind's eye. Two traders squaring off over a disputed contract, their words measured and tense. Lawyers pore over the language while the judge consults local customs and precedents. The process is slow, costly, and rarely resolves disputes quickly. Beyond contracts, city officials issued regulations aimed at stabilizing the market rules about where auctions could be held, who could participate, and how disputes were settled. Enforcement was uneven, and some traders skirted these laws through creative loopholes or alliances. The legal world extended to inheritance laws, too. Tulip collections often passed through families with wills specifying bulb ownership and division. These transfers sometimes sparked disputes, especially when rare varieties were involved. You notice how the law attempted to formalize trust in a market where human relationships and reputation still mattered most. Contracts served as a safety net, but couldn't replace the delicate social fabric binding traders together. As evening falls, you reflect on the tension between law and commerce, the way written rules try to contain the unpredictable impulses of greed, hope, and risk. The tulip trade is a dance between nature, human desire, and legal order. You move deeper into the subtle rivalries and alliances that weave through the tulip market. Power plays between guilds, family networks, and trader factions that shape who controls the flow of bulbs and money. The market is not just a place of trade, but a delicate theater of strategy, loyalty, and sometimes betrayal. A straightforward fact anchors this: tulip trading guilds organized the market-setting rules for membership, quality control, and dispute resolution. These guilds wielded power not only economically, but socially, influencing city politics and merchant rankings. You pick up on a quirky whisper: families often formed alliances through marriage or shared investments, creating informal cartels that could corner supply on rare tulip varieties. These alliances sometimes lasted generations, their rivalries passed down like heirlooms, as much as their tulip collections. Historians still debate how much these networks shaped market dynamics, whether they fostered stability or stifled competition. Some argue that guilds protected smaller traders from exploitation, while others see them as gatekeepers of privilege. You watch a subtle duel unfold. Two trader families compete quietly over a coveted tulip strain, each trying to outmaneuver the other through secret deals and whispered rumors. The rivalry plays out in both market transactions and social events, with alliances shifting like petals in the wind. Sometimes these rivalries spilled into public disputes, while at other times they fueled collaborations that expanded markets or shared risks. Trust was currency, but so were grudges and vendettas. In quieter moments, traders gathered in taverns to negotiate temporary truces or to gossip about competitors. The social dimension was as crucial as financial savvy. You realize that the tulip market's social networks created an ecosystem where relationships could make or break fortunes. The flower's fragility mirrored the fragile alliances binding traders together. As you wander the city's canals at dusk, you reflect on this intricate dance of power. How the tulip trade was not just a business, but a living web of human connections, ambitions, and rivalries. You find yourself immersed in the cultural reflections that tulips inspired across art, literature, and satire mirrors held up to trader life and society's fascination with this floral economy. Tulips bloom not just in gardens, but on canvas, in poems and biting caricatures that capture the market's highs and lows. A concrete fact, Dutch painters of the 18th century often included tulips in still life paintings, symbolizing wealth transience and the fleeting nature of beauty. These works adorned merchant homes, reminding viewers of both prosperity and the inevitability of decay. You discover a quirky tidbit, satirical pamphlets, and prints poked fun at tulip traders exaggerating their obsession to comical extremes, depicting them as frazzled figures clutching bulbs like treasure or trading bulbs in absurdly high towers. These caricatures served as both entertainment and social critique. Historians still debate how seriously the public took these portrayals, whether they reflected widespread skepticism of the tulip market or merely humorous exaggeration. In any case, the cultural conversation shaped public perceptions and trader reputations. You stroll through a crowded bookshop where poems celebrating tulip blooms sit alongside biting verses warning of greed's dangers. These literary works use tulips as metaphors for beauty ambition and the precarious nature of wealth. In theaters and coffee houses, you hear stories and jokes about the tulip trade's ups and downs. Humor lightens the tension, but also spreads cautionary tales to a broader audience. You observe how tulips appear in fashion, too embroidered on silks woven into tapestries and patterned on ceramics, signaling the flower's deep integration into daily life and status symbols. The interplay of art and commerce blurs boundaries. Tulip paintings serve as advertisements for rare bulbs, while poems inspire desire and speculation. The flower becomes a cultural icon and economic engine in one. As night falls, you feel the city's pulse softened by candlelight and the quiet murmur of artistic gatherings. Tulips in their many forms tell stories of human hope's follies and the fleeting nature of fortune. This cultural tapestry enriches your understanding of the tulip's place, not just as a commodity, but as a symbol deeply embedded in Dutch identity and imagination. You feel the slow fading of tulip prominence as you witness the decline of this once vibrant trade, a gentle dimming rather than a sudden collapse. The 18th century winds down with shifting tastes, economic changes, and evolving social priorities, signaling the end of tulips' reign as status symbols and speculative gold. One clear fact marks this transition: the tulip market's explosive growth from the 17th century gradually gave way to more measured trade, with prices stabilizing and fewer wild fluctuations. The mania became a memory, a story told by elders rather than a daily reality. Yet the decline is not simply economic. You sense cultural shifts: new plants and flowers capturing attention, changing garden fashions, and evolving urban landscapes. Tulips, while still admired, share the stage with roses, dahlias, and exotic imports, diluting their former dominance. A quirky note arises: some old traders still clutch tiny bulbs of rare tulips, treating them like precious relics, while others grumble about flower fatigue and the market's stagnation. The tulip's flame burns lower, but still flickers in pockets of passion. Historians debate whether this decline was inevitable or accelerated by broader political and economic upheavals. The wars, shifting trade routes, and the rise of industrialization all playing roles. The tulip's retreat is a complex story woven into global change. You observe the lasting impact on Dutch identity. Tulips remain iconic symbols, their image immortalized in art festivals and national pride. The legacy of the trade informs modern horticulture, tulip cultivation techniques, and international markets. The cityscape reflects this quiet evolution. Canal houses that once overflowed with tulip contracts now host banks, guild halls, and emerging industries. The scent of tulips mingles with the salt air, and wood smoke a reminder of past glory. You feel a bittersweet sense of nostalgia for the tulip's heyday, a time when a single flower could command empires of hope and risk. The quiet canals seem to carry whispers of those days echoing beneath the surface. As dusk settles, you appreciate how the tulip's story embodies cycles of growth, decline, and renewal. A flower forever tied to the rhythms of human ambition and nature's whims. You arrive at the quiet aftermath, the calm that settles over the tulip trade after centuries of bloom and bust, speculation and sorrow. The once fevered market has mellowed into a soft murmur, like the gentle ripples along Amsterdam's canals at dawn. The bustling auction halls and whispered deals give way to quieter reflection and the slow turning of history's pages. The tulip trade's lessons linger like a faint perfume, subtle but enduring. Traders and historians alike ponder what this flower taught about human nature, our desires, our follies, and our resilience. The market's rise and fall serve as a mirror reflecting the delicate balance between hope and caution, risk and reward. You walk slowly along the canals, the cobblestones cool beneath your feet, the air filled with the faint scent of damp earth and fading blossoms. The city feels timeless here, its past woven into every brick and beam, its stories carried softly by the evening breeze. A peaceful fact emerges: tulips continue to thrive, cultivated and celebrated worldwide, their colors bright and diverse. The flower's beauty endures beyond markets, and money reminding us of nature's capacity to inspire and humble. You catch a glimpse of a single tulip bloom, resilient against the fading light petals gently unfurling. It stands as a quiet testament to cycles, growth, decline, and renewal, echoing the human stories intertwined with its history. Historians still debate the tulip trade's ultimate legacy, whether it was merely a curious episode or a profound lesson in economics and culture. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, wrapped in petals of complexity. As the night deepens, you let the soft sounds of the city soothe your mind: the distant murmur of water, the faint rustle of leaves, the gentle creak of a boat moored nearby. The tulip trade's once roaring flame has cooled to embers, but its glow remains. Now you close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the quiet peace of this world settling around you, a gentle lullaby from history itself. You have reached the end of our journey through the quiet world of 18th century Dutch tulip traders. Now let's slow down together. Let your thoughts drift gently like petals floating on still water. The rush of markets and the thrill of fortunes fade into soft shadows, leaving space for calm and reflection. Imagine the tulips' delicate colors dissolving into twilight, their fragrance a whisper on the breeze. Here, in this quiet aftermath, you find rest not just for your eyes, but for your mind and spirit. Let the peaceful canals and the gentle murmur of history cradle you into sleep, carrying you softly into dreams where time flows slow and gentle. Thank you for sharing this journey. Sweet dreams.